Welcome to Incited. Each week, I want to highlight a student pursuing something they care about. I'm Haley, and as much as I love listening to podcasts, I recently noticed a significant lack of podcasts aimed at high schoolers. From businesses to books to the arts, the possibilities are really endless for my generation to educate, inspire, and change the world. In today's episode, I interviewed Romeo Venezia, an extremely talented high school senior who actually made the intro music that you heard a few seconds ago. A few years ago, Romeo released his first EP, Ballad of Forms, when he was only 16, which is pretty insane. From jazz to rock to choral music, Romeo is possibly the high school musician to end all high school musicians, well, until he graduates and goes to Berklee College of Music in the fall. Thank you so much for coming on to Incited today. Why don't you introduce yourself and a little bit about your music and just anything, really?
All right. Hi, my name is Romeo Venezia. You can call me Romeo, you can call me Ro, you can call me Rome. I don't have a preference really. Um, I'm 18 years old. I am a musician. I released stuff way back 2 years ago. Would that be 2022? And haven't released a lot yet, but I'm looking forward to a brighter future where I can, since I will be going to a music school for college. So yay. But yeah, I do the music I have out is currently a lot of, like, indie pop, indie, like, emotional emo type stuff. I'm trying to deviate from that heavily, but if you're into that, you might be into my first EP, Ballad of Forms, so go check it out. It's a very philosophical indie journey.
Awesome. And then what really got you into music at first?
Oh, this is funny. It was actually Barbie, weirdly enough. Like, did I don't know if you ever saw those animated Barbie ones with, like, 3D animated
Oh, yeah, I
monster
saw a
movies?
few. That's the one with like the little creature, like Bibble, right?
Yeah, but that's not the only one. There's a trillion of them, and I've seen all of them.
Oh,
And in all
wow.
of them, except for, like, Barbie Nutcracker, there's always a musical soundtrack to go with it. Barbie always jumps into some sort of, like, random song, a bunch of soliloquy songs about her journey, who she is, etcetera, etcetera. It's like watching, like, an early Disney film, but for, Barbie. And watching those really inspired me because in my mind as a little kid, Barbie was just randomly deciding, "I'm gonna sing a song," and then would jump into song about whatever she's doing, and the song would be great, and it'd be a banger, and everyone would be dancing, and there'd be this huge performance to go with it, this choreographed dance, and I just thought that was the shit, and I was like, "I wanna be just like Barbie. I wanna be a super mega pop rock star," whatever that was. And then I just, would start singing Barbie songs, and I would start writing my own Barbie-esque songs, and then from there, my mom was like, "Let's get you voice lessons. Not that you're bad or anything, like, you can just be better." And I got voice lessons, and my voice teacher never lets me live this down, but I walked in, little 6th grader, and I was like, My name is Ro, and I'm a songwriter, and I wanna be a songwriter." And that's how I walked in. And, since then I've just gotten better.
God.
I've deviated from Barbie entirely, but still a musician at heart.
No, that's honestly awesome because like Barbie songs, like straight bangers, like every single
Oh,
one of them. I've
yeah.
never heard a bad song from a Barbie movie,
I mean, I
like
have, but they're
ever.
not the ones that Barbie sings. They're like the ones the villain sings or like the ones the side character sings. But
That's true.
that's on purpose. That's a writing choice, and that's another thing I respect.
Barbie herself never misses.
No, never.
No, but that's awesome. And then so you started like songwriting and stuff and you said like 6th grade. When did you first like have the idea that you were gonna like write a whole album? Or I guess EP album, but it's
Well, I
basically
mean,
the same thing.
yes. Well, there's a little difference, but it's not a difference I'll explain.
Or you
It's
can't
not.
explain the difference actually because
Okay.
I don't know, and I'm sure people listening also don't know. So
An EP is roughly it's a collection of songs that's either like 1 to 4 songs or under 7 minutes worth of music, and then an album is over 4 or 5 songs and longer than 7 minutes. And
oh, I
that's
didn't
really the
know that there were like
difference.
time parameters on that. That's actually really
Yeah.
cool. I didn't know that.
Although no one's gonna kill you if you have like if you just call it 4-song thing an album, like, there might be some, "Oh, actually, that's an EP," but not really. But yeah, where was I? I mean, it was always the goal. If I was gonna be a songwriter, I probably would release my own stuff at one point. I just was like, "Oh, I'll wait till I'm older, because that's when, Like, unless you're Billie Eilish or unless you're really lucky, you're probably not gonna get a record deal at 16, 17, 15, whatever. You're probably gonna get that stuff later on in life, which makes sense. Of course, that's changing now with, like, TikTok and stuff, but I'm not a very online person, which is one of my weaknesses in music, but
You're not a screenager.
whatever. Nah, it's definitely a screenager, just not a poster, by any means. But, uh, the idea came from Mr. Bowman's class, actually.
Oh
Mr.
my
Bowman's
gosh.
English class, honors English class.
Love
We
Mr.
had
Bowman.
in 10th grade, yes. We had our Play-Doh project genius hour, and everyone else was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make cookies, I'm gonna do this," and I was like, "I'm gonna write an album. I'm gonna release my music." And originally the plan was to release an 8-song album, but like 3 days into recording the first song, I realized that was a hefty expectation. So I made it an EP because each of the songs took about 2 weeks to record and edit. Actually,
Oh,
maybe even
wow.
3 weeks. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be, but I made it work, obviously. Like, I didn't give up by any means. And then from there, it's just, you know, I wanna do more stuff, but it's again, it takes a long time, it's a lot of effort, and plus, if you're using a really shitty, a really shitty DAWs, which is a digital audio software, then, like, you get impatient quickly, you don't have that motivation. Honestly, I kind of respect myself for sticking through that much when I was in 10th grade, because there were some times when I was just, like, on the floor crying because, like, something sounded just a little bit too wrong, and, like, I didn't know how to fix it, but,
Oh,
like, we
no.
made it work. We made it work.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a really long process. I feel like when people hear like a 3-minute song, they don't necessarily think about like, the weeks, months, like the just pure amount of time that goes into like writing and recording and producing a song and they only like hear whatever like 3, 4, 5 minutes of it. Um,
Yeah.
can you walk me through like the songwriting and recording process? I mean, I know it's gonna be different for everything, but like when you were recording your EP, like what was the
Oh, yeah.
process like for that?
The process for that, well, the songs were all songs that I had written years prior, and some of those songs I wrote really quickly, like the first song of the album, "Ignite." I wrote that in under 5 minutes, and it's the fastest song I've written. That doesn't mean it's good, but, it's still something. And then the last song, "Introductions," that one took, like that took weeks of writing something, coming back to it, etcetera, etcetera. But either way, I write the song for however long I take. Usually, I base it off of motivation and, emotion to help me write it, but I write the song, and then I go into recording, and I just start by doing the vocals and doing one instrument. That's something I should have mentioned. Whenever I write a song, I always write the lyrics, I always write the vocals, I always do all that, but I also write at least one instrument to go with it, so that way if I'm just playing it for myself to hear roughly what I want it to sound like, I have some sort of accompaniment, and that instrument can be piano, it can be guitar over there, it can be bass, it can even be just drums, like, as long as I have something to go with it, so I'm not, like, just saying stuff. So then I go into recording and into the digital audio software or whatever. I record my vocals, I record that one instrument, and then I look at it and I'm like, "What other stuff do I want?" And I'll add another instrument. Maybe that's bass, drums. It's usually some sort of rhythmic instrument if there isn't one already. And then I'm like, "Okay, now I wanna fill these silent spaces." So I'll go in, I'll add a synth, I'll add piano, I might add more guitar if there isn't guitar already. And then I'm like, "Okay, I wanna embellish this." I might do some little, um, you know, like, some little riffs or something. I'll go in guitar, bass, added that. And then I'll look at the vocals again. I always do the vocals last. Usually what ends up happening is after I record all of the instruments for the songs and after I, like, mesh them together roughly how I want it, I'll re-record the vocals so that way I can now that I hear what the song is gonna be, I can match the voice to what the outcome is gonna look like as opposed to just throwing it out there and seeing what I can do with it. And then from there, I'll add stuff to the vocals, I'll add harmonies, I'll add, little echoes in the background, although I really don't like those. But, I'll just keep adding to it until I feel like it's full, and then I'll go in and I'll, like, blend all the parts together, edit the crap out of my voice, out of the guitar, not to, like, change it, but just to remove background noise, remove, like One thing I had a lot when I was younger was I had a lot of saliva in my mouth when I sang because I didn't know how to control it properly, and I didn't know how to, like, control my breath to get rid of it. So, in between takes, you'd hear.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time editing out those. I went back into one of the files recently, and I saw there was this one voice line that was just chopped up a million times. I was like, "Why'd I do that?" And then I, like, unchopped it, and I heard all those lip smacks, and I was like, "Jesus Christ." But, yeah, I'm better about that now, obviously, but, you wanna get rid of those ASMR moments. You're not filming ASMR, you're writing a song.
Yet growth mindset.
Yet, exactly. The whole college thing doesn't work out, I mean, making bank.
No, but that's awesome because I feel like I know, I didn't know exactly, how much goes into a song, and to do that, what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, how many times, for an EP or for an album, that's crazy, and the fact that you did this all, in 10th grade in the, 4 months that the project takes place is insane.
Yeah.
And then you said that before you always like to write with, an instrument at some point. Do you have a favorite instrument, or does it just depend on the song, really?
Mm. That really just that really just changes with the seasons, honestly. Like, when I was younger and 12th grade, no. When I was 12 years old and Grace Vanderwaal won America's Got Talent, that would probably my favorite instrument then would probably be the ukulele, and then I would switch to the more big kid instrument of guitar, and I still love my guitar, but lately, because I've been doing a lot more bass stuff and a lot of more jazz bass has been my favorite instrument. But it just really depends on, the weather, how I'm feeling, what I find myself doing the most. But for songwriting, I don't always go to my favorite instrument. I just go with the one that would sound the most correct for what the lyrics suggest the tone of the song to be. For example, if it's an angry song, I would probably write it on something a lot heavier, like maybe my guitar with a bunch of distortions and stuff added to it, or even my bass just to get that that heaviness to it. If it's a lighter song or a more ballady song, I'll always go piano. I'm not good at piano, but, the chords are still there.
Yeah, I kind of understand that what you were saying about, sort of writing each song, with whatever instrument that it really feels like it goes with. Do you have anything specific that you like to write your songs about, or does it just
Mm.
really depend on the song?
Uh, I love stories. Growing up, my dad would always tell me stories before bed, and they weren't like read stories, they were always stories he'd make up. So I love storytelling. I love, introducing characters, introducing a scene. I love just telling a story, and I love making that story revolve around just just raw emotion. I love emotion. I love human response. I love philosophy in that way. Like I love the philosophy behind why we respond to things the way they do. Less so sometimes it's more psychology, I guess, but I like the more like I like looking at the human response and asking why do we do that. So I like writing stories about that. So a lot of my songs are just stories. Sometimes they're true stories, sometimes they're not true stories. Fiction stories is the proper word. Sometimes they're stories inspired by my life, but twisted in a little way, so, the person the song's about doesn't realize it. But my songs are always just stories, like Nostalgia. Nostalgia is a story that's one of the songs on my EP. That's a story about someone who was in love with someone and then the relationship ended because it was a very one-sided relationship, but they now want that relationship back. They're nostalgic of what little time they had together with the person, and the whole song is them just saying how much they wish they could go back and do it again. And then introductions is I mentioned that one before. Actually, no, that's a bad example. Halloween Party it's probably my best one. It's a very Melanie Martinez inspired song, somewhat lyric-wise, but it's a song about this person wanting to make friends, so they invite a bunch of people who they spend time with to this Halloween party, but nobody shows up. And through the lyrics, you realize that these people were never really this person's friends. This person was just kinda inserting themselves into the picture, and this was their reality check that they don't really have friends like they thought they did. And it's
Oh, that's
sad, but
cool.
it's also interesting, you know? Loneliness.
Yeah, no, that's all like really awesome. And I definitely agree. Like I love listening to songs, that sort of revolve around stories, especially. And you said before, like, that Halloween Party was very like Melanie Martinez based. Then you mentioned that your EP is pretty like you described it as like emo, like indie pop. And then um do you have a favorite like style of music to like write and perform in? Because I know before you mentioned that you're trying to move away from that. So like what's your favorite at the moment?
At the moment, it's honestly a lot of metal, prog rock. Like, that's been a genre that was some in a genre I was introduced to through my roommate at a summer camp. He was a very big metalhead, still is, and he introduced me to a bunch of bands, and I like that, and I like those because they keep a lot of that, um there's one band in particular I'm obsessed with, it's called Sleep Token, it's this really cool metal band, a bit cultish, but, like, it's cool, it's part of the story, it's part of the plot, guys. The lyrics that they have in their songs are the stuff that I wanna go for. It's telling a story through just human emotion and at the same time analyzing that emotion, and I love that. And then the way that they put together their songs, like, it reminds me a bit of the music I do, like, if you listen to my EP, you'll hear that I use a lot of, for lack of a better term, otherworldly, alien-sounding synth, like, stuff that sounds like you're in space or stuff like that. They use a lot of that in their songs, and so I'm drawn to that, I really like the usage of that, and then also just, of course, the standard instruments. So, that's the stuff I like to listen to. Singing-wise, I think I'm trying to it's hard when you've spent, I don't know, 10 years of your life singing, like, classical, choir, indie, pop songs to deviate to a more heavier genre, but I think I'm getting better at it, and so I wanna start doing more proggish rock stuff in the future. I don't know how successful I'm gonna be, but I kinda wanna bring the stuff that I'm used to doing and just making it stronger, making it heavier, making it louder, making it more impactful, you know?
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean. And honestly, like, there's no better time than now because, like, yeah, you're starting college next fall. Like, this is the perfect time, I feel like, to sort of like branch out into different styles of music. And then have you written anything in this style yet?
I've started something. Recently,
Ooh.
I entered, for anyone who's familiar with NPR's Tiny Desk competition, I wrote a song called "Stepping on Cracks," and I performed it for Tiny Desk in the indie style I'm used to, but currently I'm working on recording it to hopefully release it as my comeback single. As and I'm gon and the recording is gonna be so much heavier from the live, because that's another thing I like that I didn't get to talk about. I love when I love when people perform their songs live in a different style than how it's recorded. Because if you wanna hear it recorded, just listen to the recording. I think live music should be a new experience altogether. So, but, that's a rant for another day. But yeah, Stepping on Cracks, that's what I have right now.
Oh, awesome. And then I totally agree with you about the live music thing, by the way. Like, I feel like music live should not be like the same experience as like listening on a recording. And yeah, I think that that's just really awesome. And, do you have a estimated release date on maybe when that's going to be out for listeners to listen to?
Nope. Uh Probably sometime over the summer because that's when I'll have the most time to sit down and record it and all that, but I've I'm not gonna give myself a deadline until I have enough to work with for a deadline, because I don't want to set myself a goal I can't reach and then disappoint not only people that wanna listen to it, but also myself. If you I'll definitely tell you probably because you and I are close friends, you're on my guard team. I'll tell you when that date gets closer, but ideally soon. I don't wanna hold back anymore.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And then I know that yeah, you mentioned time is like a huge thing because it takes just so much time to like, write and record and like produce songs. How were you able to really work through like I guess the time struggle?
I had to find motivation. That was really the thing. Because even if I set aside the time, if I didn't quite have the motivation or I couldn't get myself the motivation before, the 2 to 3 hours I set for myself for doing music are just gonna go to waste because I would just I would just be doing as little as possible because I'm not quite in the mood for it. So I have to get myself in the mood for it. And I've used to say, "Oh, that's so hard. It's so hard to get into the mood." It's actually quite easy. You've just gotta start. That's really all it is. You've gotta wake up in the morning, you've gotta okay. You gotta not look at your phone, you gotta not do your social media, you gotta not start any project that you've already started. Like, you can do other things throughout the day, like go to school, talk to friends, etc., but you can't get too invested in anything just yet. And then when you sit down for your designated time, just just get invested because 'cause you'll have the room to, you'll have the energy to, you'll get the motivation to just keep going. And that works for music and also other things, like, for school projects, usually I won't think about them, I won't look at them until I get home, and then when I get home, I'm able to once I start, I'm able to get extremely invested.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand like what you're getting at there. And honestly, I feel like motivation is kind of like the root of everything. You could have like all the time in the world, and then if you have no motivation, like you're not really gonna like do anything with it, I feel like. So I was wondering, because I know your whole like EP, like you fully wrote and recorded that yourself. Do you prefer to like sing like on your own and like play the instruments yourself, or do you like to perform with a band? I was just
Oh my
wondering.
gosh, bands. If you'd asked me this, like, 2 years ago, I would have said, "I'm a solo artist, I like to do it alone, I like to have full control." And I do like to have full control, like, that's still a thing, but lately I've realized that I can't get the I can't create the effect I want if I do everything myself. Like, in a recording context, yeah, I like to do that alone. I can get that stuff put out faster, but for performing, I just love having a band there. It really It's actually choir that helped me realize this. Like, I know you're an alto, if you don't mind me breaking the fourth wall into our personal lives. Imagine if you were put on a stage and you had to just sing the alto line, and that was the entirety of our choir concerts.
Oh my god, I would cry. The alto line's always, like, so bad, like
Yeah, exactly. It's bad.
not bad.
It doesn't sound but it doesn't sound complete. Or
Yeah,
even if we
never
had,
on its
like
own.
or even if we had a soloist come up and just do the solo for the concert and that was it. It would feel empty. The reason the choir is there is to make it stronger, make it louder, make it bigger, and just, like, scratch that itch. And that's why I like bands, because it's that same idea. And choir helped me realize I like bands, because once I realized I can never do this type of stuff alone, then yeah. And I'm in a band right now, actually. The band is called, House, and it is a fun little, uh British rock cover band. It's really fun. We don't have any stuff out, nor do we do any live shows, but if we do, that's the name of the band. They're really cool. It's just me and a bunch of idiots coming together and making fun noises in someone's attic, and it's great. And I had a
Awesome.
band over the summer, and I'm working with those people again actually to make music, so I'm very happy
Ooh.
about that. Shout out to Liam Hopkins and Jeremiah Anderson because 'cause they're really cool about that. And yeah, I just bands are just so much better.
No, that's awesome, and I definitely agree with you, like, if you only have, like, one person, like, on stage, like, a lot like, 9 times out of 10, like, it's gonna sound empty, like, no matter you could have, like, the best musician on earth, like, on one stage and just, like, it wouldn't compare to, like, if you have multiple people there, like, it's just a very, like, different, like, altogether feeling, I feel like. Sort of this is kinda an abrupt transition, but, yeah, completely abrupt. I wish I had a
Go
better
for it.
transition into this, but, how did you come up with the name Ballad of Forms for your first
Mhm.
EP? I've been kinda wondering that for a while.
So the whole Plato project was, loosely themed around Plato and philosophy, which is what we were studying. Probably just so Mr. Bowman could get away with it on his school board, but whatever. And Ballad of Forms is a take on the theory of forms, which is Plato's idea that um everything like there's an interpretation for everything, and there's some things that we just completely made up, but there's always these base forms that just exist as a pure definition, uninfluenced by by human thought or human interpretation. And those things can be love, they can be loneliness, they can be anger, happiness, they can really just be anything. If my philosophy knowledge of Plato is correct, I haven't brushed up on my Plato in a bit. So Ballad of Forms is a take on that. After I finished the album, I realized that all of my songs were written as ballads, and that's fine by me. I quite like ballads. I love those strong, impactful songs as opposed to, like, those 1-second punchers, but, uh, I realized every song was a ballad, so it's just like, "What if I just make a little play on this Ballad of Forms instead of Theory of Forms?" And I was really proud of that, and I still am, actually. Like, I've never just picking a name for a song and album is just a very satisfying feeling because 'cause you'll go through a bunch of names, none of them will feel quite right, but then you'll hit that one, and it's just like, "Oh god, there's no other name that works. This is too good."
I totally know what you mean. I kinda had the same thing for my podcast actually. But, no, the Ballad of Forms, like, now that I know, like, it's, like, the whole, like, forms, like, Play-Doh thing, like, that is really creative, like, that's great.
Thank you.
No, like yeah, no, that's awesome, and then do you have a favorite song on Ballad of Forms or honestly that you've even, like, written in general? Like,
Written in
not just
general,
Ballad of
mm,
Forms, because that's, like, 4 great songs, but it's out of 4, so just any favorite song.
mm. I'll end okay. Really? I I don't quite have a favorite song. The songs in Ballad of Forms were, at the time, my 4 favorite songs out of the however many songs I had written at the time. Right now, I think the song that I just keep coming back to is this one called "Out with the Old." It is the song that I used to audition to the music school I'm going to, Berklee, by the way, Berklee College of Music, I didn't mention that. But, it's a song I used to audition to get in. It's a more jazzier song because I forgot to mention this, I love jazz. So it's a very jazzy song, um, and it's about breaking up with someone only to find out afterwards they cheated on you and just that anger and that, like, "fuck you" energy. It's a really good song, and I wanna do more with that. I've just been procrastinating on it, but I love it. Although in Ballad of Forms, I think my favorite is probably Nostalgia. I had the most fun recording it, and I had the most fun singing it. It's such a sweet, simple song, and it's and every time have a music lesson with my voice teacher, she always brings up how much she loves it, so that makes me happy. Also, there's this little recording thing I did that I'm so proud of myself for doing. Towards the end of the chorus, there's this little, like, echo feature where one voice not the end of course, sorry, end of the song. There's a little echo feature where one voice starts singing the chorus, and then, like, 4 beats later, another voice, and then 4 beats later, another voice, and that was inspired by The Chain by Ingrid Michaelson. Because when I was really young, I've loved Ingrid Michaelson because my mom loved Ingrid Michaelson, and I loved Ingrid Michaelson, and The Chain was one of my favorite songs, and that was done live too. Like, I love the live version of Chain. That echo effect she did was live, and I recreated it in recording. I remember after I got it down, I listened back to it, I had to sit down, I had to listen to it on loop for, like, 30 minutes because I was so proud of myself, and it sounded so good. Gosh, like, and also
That's
just nostalgia was a sweet song to write. I remember what it's about, I remember who it's about, and I always just get happy when I hear it again.
oh, that's really awesome, I feel like no, because all your songs, I feel like, have just, like, great stories behind them, like, as you said before, like, you like to write with a story, and no, like, I wanna, like okay, I've listened to, Nostalgia, like, I've listened to your, EP, but no, now I wanna hear all of these, this is awesome. Do you have, like, any sorry again for the abrupt, like, transition, but do you have any advice that you'd maybe give, like, somebody looking to get into songwriting who doesn't really know much about it?
I do, yes. Don't try to find the method that the professionals use. Because if you keep trying to be like these professional people that you hear, or even just like some like indie artists on Spotify who like does everything independent, don't try to use their methods, don't use their rituals, because chances are they're not going to work for you. And when they don't work for you, you're just going to get frustrated and you're just going to feel like this isn't meant for you. try to do things yourself. Like, of course, if people recommend equipment, if people recommend tools, take those. But for methods, for finding your own time to do things, for finding your own way to do things, especially, just trust yourself. Don't try to don't try to do it how a professional would do it. Do it how you would do it. And there's also another thing, there's no right way to writing songs, there's no right way to recording songs, there's no right way to performing songs. If it sounds good, you're doing it right.
Well, that's awesome because I feel like yeah, music is just like honestly such a subjective like art form, I feel like.
Yeah,
And there's no like at its core, like there's no bad music. It's just can all be like interpreted differently. And no, like that's just honestly like a really great piece of advice.
it works for more than music, it works for anything. If your product looks good, doesn't matter if it's right, and it doesn't matter if it's done the right way or if it's, like, follows a guideline, if it makes you happy and if it's looks good, sounds good to you, congrats, you did it right.
Exactly. And like that's just like an honestly like super awesome like way to think about it and super awesome like way to live too. Unfortunately, since my Zoom is limited to 40 minutes, we
That's
do have
alright.
to stop pretty soon, and I have 2 more questions that I just really wanna ask you. Um, First of all, like, is there anything that I haven't been able to ask about or that I haven't asked about yet, that you just maybe wanted to add?
I'll throw in a little bit. I am transgender. I'm not on HRT. Um, that has been a bit of a roadblock, and it's been very discouraging because I don't sound like a guy, but but I am a guy, and I want to fully be a guy, but it's hard to prove to someone I'm a guy when a lot of the thing I do revolves around using my voice, which is a really big giveaway. So really, I've just, it's just I had to learn to just say, "Fuck it." Like, people will say what they want, but that doesn't change the fact that the voice that that doesn't change the fact that I can't be happy with myself. I can learn to love the voice I have. I can learn to accept the situation as is. I don't have to love it, but I can learn to accept and I can learn to own it, and that'll help. That helps me more than if I just sit there and, like, whine about how I don't have the resources I need. I just if you know, that's just a big thing, like, a lot of and I feel like that I don't know if there's any other trans artists out there who are singers that are discouraged by the fact they don't sound the way they want to, but that doesn't matter. There's a lot of singers who are trans who don't have HRT or don't have any of that, who are still excellent musicians. The way you sound doesn't determine who you are. It doesn't that's you're not an instrument. Well, you are. Okay. Ignore that last part, but the way you sound doesn't determine who you are. You determine who you are.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for, like, sharing that, and honestly, like what you said, like, the way that you sound doesn't determine who you are, like, you determine who you are, like, I feel like that's, like, just a really, like, great thing to just live by, and yeah, just thank you so much for sharing that, and I'm sure that some listeners could absolutely, like, relate and, take part of that into their own lives as well.
Of course.
And then as my kind of final question, we've got 1 minute left here.
You can
It's
do this.
completely unrelated to music or the podcast at all,
Go for
and
it.
it's something I wanna ask everyone. If you were locked in a room with one person, alive or dead, who would that person be?
It would be my best friend in the whole wide world, Olivia Padwell.
Awesome, and I'm definitely sending her this episode, so I'm sure she's gonna love the shout out at the very end.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, okay, less than a minute left. Thank you so much for coming on to
No
Incited.
worries. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Incited, and be sure to subscribe and get notified when the next episode is released. And be sure to check out Romeo on Instagram, Spotify, and his website, which are all linked in the description. And as for me, you can find Incited on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, all under at Incited Podcast, which is INSIGHTED podcast, and more information at incitedpodcast.com, which is spelled the same way and also linked in the description. See you next time.